But then, you look at the risk for Bitcoin. Do you ever see the United States government not necessarily banning it, but trying to clamp down and as a risk factor? Or do you think it's getting too big where, I mean, once you have MicroStrategy's investing and Tesla investing, they can't really clamp down on it at that point?
I think the thing to keep in mind about the crypto ecosystem is there are digital properties, there is digital currency, and there are digital applications. Digital property is, I just own one block in cyber Manhattan called a Bitcoin, and there are 21 million other. I just own one. What do? I just own it. What does it do? It just sits there. It's property. That's taxed as property by the IRS. That is property rights. Any country that gives you property rights will let you own it. As far as I can tell, China hasn't banned the ownership of Bitcoin yet. You can still own it. So as property, there isn't that much regulatory risk, certainly not in the Western world. I think in Western Europe, the United States, if you can own $1 million of gold, and if you can own $1 million of a spider, and if you can own $1 million of land, you can own $1 million of Bitcoin. You should start worrying when we flip to a communist regime or a socialist regime, when they steal your building and they take your art and they take your house and they take your stocks and they take your cash and they take your gold. Yeah, they're probably going to try to take your Bitcoin too. But of all those things, Bitcoin will be the hardest thing for them to take. They will take all the other stuff first. Everything else you own in this world will be taken from you before they take your Bitcoin. Now, the other aspect, digital currency, yeah, nobody wants you to threaten their currency. So, you're not going to be able to transfer $1 million of Bitcoin tax-free in private. That's not going to happen, right? Any more than you could transfer $1 million of stock in Apple tax-free privately. They're not going to let you do that either. You can't sell your house for $1 million, book a $900,000 capital gain and not pay it. So those kind of property laws will apply to Bitcoin. I think that the Chinese wanted this digital currency, but they got confused between their thinking that Bitcoin was the currency, and it's not going to protect their currency at all. It's more like I banned electricity and the internet to support my currency. Bitcoin is technology for digital property rights on 8 billion handheld devices. So if you outlawed the ability to move music on a mobile device or move videos on a mobile device, right? It wouldn't help your currency. It would undermine your economy. So that's kind of what they did. They undermined the value and screwed with the value of their mobile networks without knowing it, because most people don't think that hard about it. The third area of cryptos is digital apps like DeFi, and if you're trading stock tokens, if you're trading an Apple stock token on a Saturday afternoon, maybe the SEC will care. If you're actually competing with the commodities exchange or the futures exchange or trading derivatives or you're creating unregistered securities, then you're going to have to pass the Howey test. There's going to be a question as to, is this an unregistered security or is this property? And there's a legal distinction. If it's property, then anybody can own it and it's not subject to securities laws. And if it is a security, then, a politician can't own it without violating House ethics rules. And so there will be clarity in that area as people sort out what's a token that's property versus a token that's security. And if your token is currency, like Tether. I mean, if you have a stable coin, if your token is literally a dollar or a euro, and then you're not applying KYC AML regs and you're moving $50 billion of a money market in cyberspace that's not subject to KYC and you don't have a money transfer license, and you're operating in the US, you're going to catch regulatory heat, I think. So you just have to distinguish in your head, what are people using these things for? Are they using it to move money, dollars? Are they using it to store monetary value and property? Or are they using it to trade option derivatives on Saturday afternoon? And if you're using it to store intellectual property rights. Let's say you put your music on an NFT and you give it away. Well, interesting. What if you put the Eagles music on an NFT? Well, you're going to get a letter from the Eagles lawyer, because the Eagles lawyer is going to be concerned about you distributing their copyrighted material. So the use case of the crypto is going to invite the regulatory scrutiny.
Yeah, and I mean, I've argued that the regulation is something that it actually would be a positive, because I think the faster you get the U.S. government to regulate, at least in certain ways, like in the property side, like you're saying, the faster the government will recognize it as property, and then it can actually perform exceptionally well as that digital goldish type situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think most regulation is generally good for the ecosystem, as it provides clarity. But I think that the clarity is already here for digital property. I think that the clarity for digital currency and digital applications is a bit wanting. And that's where there's a need / opportunity.
Gotcha. Now I just have some interesting questions about MicroStrategy. Are you guys continuing to think that you'll just every quarter you'll do another kind of offering to buy more Bitcoin? I mean, is there any sort of schedule there, or it's just kind of whenever the price looks attractive? Or how do you guys determine, as how much you're going to accumulate and when?
We have a treasury strategy and a corporate strategy. So our treasury strategy is we hold $50 million of working capital in US dollars. And so generally we keep that because we're about a $500 million business. And we figure if we have 50 million in working capital in local fiat currencies, that'll cover us 99% of the time. And then the rest of excess cash flow, we sweep into our long-term treasury strategy, which is to buy Bitcoin. So as we generate cash flow, we will generally routinely from time to time buy Bitcoin. And then our corporate strategy is run the enterprise software business and grow it as fast as we can and generate cash flow with it. And then the second strategy is buy and hold Bitcoin. And we will buy and hold Bitcoin through various types of measures. One way to get it is to sweep our cash flows into it. The second way to get it is to issue equity. The third way to buy Bitcoin is to issue convertible debt. The fourth way to buy Bitcoin is to issue secured debt, non-convertible, just senior debt. We've done all those things so far. There may be fifth ways. We may at some point see the formation of Bitcoin-backed securities, where you could actually just securitize the bond issuance with the Bitcoin itself and without the cash flows of the company or without equity. So when do we do those things? Well, the answer is when it's accretive to do that. So, if there are times when it's accretive to issue equity, and there are times when it's dilutive to issue equity. There are times when it's accretive to do a convert, and there are times when it isn't. There are times when it would be accretive to do a senior secured financing, and other times when it wouldn't be, and other times when you can't, even if you wanted to. And so it depends on the price of MicroStrategy stock. It depends on the price of the futures market. It depends upon the junk bond markets. It depends upon the Bitcoin market. So we're opportunistic and rational in that regard. I would never want to do anything that wouldn't be deemed as secretive by all my classes of security holders. And there are plenty of things you can do that are dilutive at any given time. It's easy to do dilutive financings and dilutive deals. You have to be very thoughtful about doing the accretive ones.
All right. And then, another thing, just as an investor myself, I was curious, if you, at some point, the company accumulates $5 or $6 or $7 billion in Bitcoin, and your market cap is essentially that. And sometimes we know, the market caps may not reflect the full value of your core business because of the Bitcoin holdings. I mean, is there anything where you would ever think, well, let me spin off the core business and then, create, I mean, you guys could almost be an ETF for Bitcoin or a holding company for Bitcoin. I mean, anything like that ever cross your mind? I mean, even if it's not reality, right?
Well, we think that the two businesses are synergistic because the core business provides us with the stability of the cash flows and the intellectual property to do senior secured financings, like the $500 million financing we did. We couldn't have done that without having a stable enterprise software company. And so the enterprise software company is beneficial to the financing. It gives stability and gives comfort to counterparties in the equity and the debt markets. And at the same time, the Bitcoin strategy has been very beneficial to our shareholders and our employees and our customers in the software business. Our stock was $120 a share when we started on this journey, and we had about $60 a share in cash. So if we had if we had just issued the cash as a dividend or a share buyback back to the shareholders, we would have had $60 stock. And maybe the company's growing 0 to 10% a year. Okay. And we wouldn't have been that special. Well, all of our employees had stock options. And so their stock options would be, would be not in the money. All their stock would have traded down, right? So it's not good for the employees. All the shareholders, maybe if they'd taken the $60 a share, they would have maybe taken a tax hit on it. And if they're smart enough to invest it in Bitcoin, maybe. But actually, I think probably they benefited more by not taking the tax hit for the dividend or the buyback. And we invested in Bitcoin with leverage, and we're getting a premium against that. So of course, our stock is up, and by a factor of 4, a factor of 5, and billions and billions of dollars of shareholder value were created. Now, as we look out, there's no telling where the stock price trades, but if the stock price were to trade below the net asset values of the company, we'd probably be buying the stock. Like we bought the stock in a Dutch auction at $140 a share. That was a pretty good idea. I mean, you know where the stock is today. So if the stock trades at a discount against assets, we buy the stock. If the stock trades at a premium, maybe we issue a convert. Maybe at some point it makes sense for us to issue equity and retire debt so that we can issue a different type of debt, a lower interest rate. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we have lots of options to do different combinations of debt and equity financing. And,
Yeah,
and it's all about timing of the market and when will the markets be amenable to such a thing. So
Yeah,
far,
you
they've
guys-
been very, very generous to us, I think.